Well, our next session is a fireside chat on resilient and secure tech platform for smart policing. For this, we have with us Mr. Manoj Abraham, Additional Director General of Police Headquarters and Nodal Officer, CyberDome, Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, and Mr. Gaurav Mahendru, Senior Advisory Consultant, ServiceNow, and Mr. Mohammed Ujaley, Senior Assistant Editor, ETGovernment, for moderating this session. Over to you, Mr. Ujaley.
Hello and welcome to ET Government National Workflow Summit being organized by ET Government from the Economics Times and ServiceNow. In this special fireside chat discussion, we are going to focus on digital platform for government and how it can deliver a standardized experience with security, agility, and scalability. To lead the discussion, today I'm joined by Mr. Manoj Abraham, Senior IPS Officer from Kerala, currently serving as Additional Director General of Police and also the Nodal Officer for CyberDome project. I'm also joined by Mr. Gaurav Mahendru, Senior Advisory Consultant from ServiceNow. Gentlemen, thank you for joining for this special fireside chat discussion. I'll begin with Mr. Abraham. Let me begin by asking you, during the pandemic, as we were discussing in previous panel discussion, that the government organization which had some level of integrated technology platform, they were able to mitigate quite well. Would you like to share briefly as to how you use technology during pandemic and how some of the integrated platform that you have set up came quite handy to you?
Basically, the pandemic changed the whole paradigm of how government functions, or for a police force which is basically engaged in the field one-to-one with the police. It changed the whole paradigm of how we do basic policing on the ground. Now, the difference between other police forces and Kerala police was we were actually a lot into technology for delivering the police services also, even before the pandemic. Our situation was that we were using the fruits of technology to ensure that the services to the citizens are delivered to the doorsteps digitally. And for most of the things, they did not come to the police station to avail the services as generally we expect them to do. So during the COVID, this proved to be very helpful because the basic protocol was on social distancing and to ensure that the health protocols are followed. And so the general aspects of field policing or one-to-one policing, where the policeman stops somebody or everybody has to come to the police station, has gone. So this technology proved effective, and we actually moved ahead and ensured that technology is used in every aspect of policing. From the petition level to delivery of any services that any public member wants, like passport inquiry, or you take a job verifications, or you take motor vehicle fining. So everything, without even coming to the police station or without even talking to any individual directly, the citizens could actually go and get those police services sitting in their homes through the digital media. So we leverage technology to that aspect. Then we use drone technology also to a big extent, in the sense that drones, as we know, that is our eyes and ears. So rather than sending policemen and patrol parties and mobile vehicles to actually enforce the lockdown, we actually use drones in big numbers to enforce the lockdown, where these drones will go into the interior areas. We leveraged in such a way that these had police sirens and the police lights also. So it gives a total effect that the police is watching you from the sky, and the lockdown, etc., was enforced. We actually went a step ahead and started using these drones also to deliver emergency services. Somebody requires medicine, or somebody requires, during the floods also, which came up during the pandemic, we actually put up life jackets, life buoys, etc., using the drones, dropping them wherever you require it. So technology actually can be leveraged in that way, where we can actually put these to the citizens. So that is one thing we did in a big way. And then, of course, we brought out the POL app, which is the integrated police application, or the app which integrates around 32 odd services together, which the citizen can avail all these services sitting in his homes using that POL app. So that proved that technology can actually, we can take it to one level higher, and the fruits of technology can actually go down to the citizen. and the police services can be made more efficient, the image of the police has gone up during this pandemic time, particularly with regards to policing in Kerala.
Right, right, absolutely. I'll come to you, Mr. Gaurav, now. What Mr. Manoj Abraham was talking about that during the pandemic, uh, police organization per se, they already had some level of technological intervention. Earlier, they were working on what they did. They repurposed those IT infrastructure and some of the newer like drones and all. They experimented with those technology to deliver the last mile services. Behind all these, there is an integrated platform actually, an integrated kind of command and control center, which is actually enabling police in terms of delivering different services. Would you like to share, based on your experience during the pandemic, how the platform type of concept actually helped different public sector organization?
Just wanted to concur with him on his points and add a couple on top of that. Like technology, what we've seen typically has adoption life cycle across organizations, be it government or be it private as well, right? What COVID has done is it has completely sped up the time frame of adoption and change. Okay, people have been forced to make those changes to ensure that they are one, not just doing their jobs as business as usual, but also at the same point of time taking it to a different level by involving technology. Now, the multiple things which Manoj sir mentioned here, like drone technologies, watching video surveillance happening via drones, then the application being used to register a lot of things, 32 different kinds of services being provided as a part of the application, right, which is there, and probably taking it to a different level by allowing even, let's say, citizens like us to go ahead and register complaints and everything on the application, right, so that we can ensure the face-to-face time is minimized, especially during the COVID time frame. Now, these things, when you start collating technologies together, the process of what is known as digital transformation, right, you need at the back end something which stitches these things together, which is where the concept of a single system of record and a single system of action comes into play, which is what is known as a platform in today's terminology as well. Now, a platform has to provide multiple functions, right? Not just go ahead and stitch things together, but also give capabilities of, let's say, common data model, whereby you can leverage, let's say, the videos which is coming in from a surveillance standpoint, do add-on technologies on top of it, such as AI and machine learning, to understand the faces, so on and so forth, and leverage that with other areas, such as, let's say, complaints being registered, to try and understand and tie things together, right, as to where this is coming from, what's the origination point, the geolocation of that particular thing, which is where the backend platform becomes very, very important. And that's where the whole process of digital transformation, and that's where it is headed these days, is coming to a common platform. And adding on top of digital transformation is the entire layer of automation, right? Because at the end of the day, let's say simple thing, like let's come back to the very simplistic service management, which the police can offer. A complaint is being registered. How are we dealing with that complaint at the back end today is the process which can be completely automated. Does it get assigned to? What's the criticality of that particular thing? Just adding a few points out there on top of it. Okay, hypothetical examples basically, which can be leveraged as a part of that. But in a nutshell, just wanted to concur with Manoj sir out here that definitely yes, digital transformation is the way to go forward. Platform is an approach which can definitely help accelerate digital transformation to a different level altogether. But bottom line for this question of yours or thought of yours is the hero of these COVID times has been digital transformation, and add on top of it automation, and you have a different level altogether.
That also brings me to my next question, which is on security. What we also observed during the pandemic, as the digital transformation agenda for various government organizations accelerated, even for the enterprises, what we noticed that, the vector for cyber attack also increases, and we were able to find out some new form of cyber attack. In Kerala, Mr. Abraham, you are running a CyberDome project. Again, a very integrated command and control center type of project, which is primarily having a broader view of entire Kerala in terms of cybersecurity management. Would you like to share, based on your experience from a CyberDome project perspective, how you manage, what kind of new trends did you witness during the pandemic from cybersecurity perspective?
So basically what we have in today's time, as we are telling, during the pandemic, most of the government organizations, the police department, everybody had to really adopt technology in an accelerated manner, as Gaurav was mentioning, which created the problems that we had systems in place that did not have the proper security protocols put in place from the coding stage itself. So the weakness was there. And in the schools, if you take the organizations, if you take a work from home culture from the various IT industries also, they were also put into great difficulty to accelerate into their systems of work from home. The schools, of course, they had no idea. Many of the schools had to just overnight put the systems in place. So the problem was with the security, and security was one of the most important things that has been exploited around the world now. And security is one of the major problems now, because the criminal also from the physical world, he has shifted to the digital world. And now we find that it's more easier committing frauds on the digital world than in the physical world, with no risk, absolutely, sitting somewhere in some part of the country in your homes and cheating people of crores of money. Then you have fraudsters, you have the child pedophiles coming in using the digital technology to great advantage with all the encryptions and things available. You have nation states actually attacking others, the enemy states, etc., where you can get a devastating effect on these places also using the digital tools, because you can actually hit a country more a lethal blow compared to, say, a bomb or a missile. The digital technology can do even far worse things to that country. So what we need to concentrate on is security. Security is very crucial in present times, and we know, if you look at the newspapers now, you know attacks are happening everywhere, and it is technology that is being used. So what we did at Kerala is we actually put up a CyberDome concept, a concept of public-private participation, where we understand that it is not like physical security where the police can do it on its own. We require partnerships with almost everybody in that field, all the stakeholders, to actually ensure a robust system of security. So what we have done in Kerala is we have built up a CyberDome, which is a public-private participative initiative, looking at preventing crimes on the net rather than investigating crimes as generally the police does. When everything happens, then we come and investigate. We actually try to do a sort of predictive analysis and see what crimes are coming and how to prevent it. Now, when the pandemic started off, we immediately went into the government sector. The education was one of the most major sectors. We actually tied up with the education department. We brought out a major program for Kids Glow, which is actually an awareness program, enhancement program for security of online classes. We actually tied up with the Australian E-Safety Commissioner and a lot of organizations in the country, in Kerala also. And we tried to build up robust systems for the schools, and we gave a lot of awareness on what the students should do, the teachers should do, the parents should do, and their role. We actually made them go through a course where they have those various do's and don'ts of how to use the online medium in a very safe manner. That's why we had very few cases of, say, intervention or problems or crimes within the online education portal as such. Similarly, among the companies also, we started an awareness drive. We actually conducted a lot of web analysis of various government websites, portals, the private sector, etc., available, and gave them vulnerability reports on what they should patch up when the digital system is in place. So we did it on a very big scale, and with the cooperation of a lot of private individuals, ethical hackers who are there available for us, who worked along with us with the police officers, and we did a lot of things in securing the whole thing. The major thing which we did was with banks. We have all the 30 to 40 odd banks and e-commerce players available on a platform with us. They work with us on a day-to-day basis, where we are trying to prevent all these online crimes from happening. And during the pandemic also, even though you feel that the victim feels that his money has gone, through the system that we have connected to all the banks, we actually block the money at the stage that actually his money doesn't go out to the fraudster, though he may get a message that I've lost my money. We have a very robust system which works on a very live basis. So the moment we get a complaint, the bank immediately blocks the transaction. And then in almost 50 to 70% of the cases, we could actually block the transaction. We could actually prevent that fraud from happening. A lot of awareness drives using our social media platforms, where Kerala Police is almost the number one player in the world with the maximum Facebook followers on all the social media platforms. We used it to a great advantage, getting our awareness into place with people on how to use the digital medium safely, the do's and don'ts to be followed while integrating the whole thing. So that was one successful intervention that we had.
Right, right. I'll come back to you again, Mr. Abraham. Now I'll go to Mr. Gaurav. Mr. Gaurav, what Mr. Manoj Abraham was saying about a predictive analysis, wherein you created a platform which is giving you some level of visibility before something could happen, and and then you can plan accordingly. What we see in today's modern workflow management, which is becoming an integral part of digital transformation journey for any organization, that predictive maintenance, predictive analytics of anything is becoming really, predictive analytics even of the networking is becoming really very important. I would like to understand you, what are the IT infra pieces that one public sector organization should focus on while they embark on digital transformation journey?
And thank you. That's a very pertinent question, right? And again, adhere to what Manoj sir mentioned. He mentioned a couple of good points, right? One is the partnership. It can't be without a partnership. It has to be. You have to play your part. They have to play their part, basically. Otherwise, you just can't go ahead and say, okay, everything relies on the police and we are doing what we are, which is the reason why we are in a kind of a situation where we are, right? So we have to play our parts very, very thoroughly. Okay. And that part comes in and becomes very effective when you realize that, yes, digital transformation is empowering you. But at the same point of time, the flip side of that is your information is now accessible online. Okay. A lot of your processes, which used to be offline, are now online, which means that kind of data which is available, be it public identifiable information, or be it credit card numbers, or be it whatsoever, which is what the fraudsters and all sir was talking about, right? Now, the point, coming back to the point of the question, right? There are two elements towards this part for any organization. Again, I'll come back to both the private as well as the government side of it, right? It's proactive as well as reactive. You can't have only proactive. There has to be that initial reactive element also, because regardless of how proactive you are, okay, there will always be those breaches that will happen where you have to react, where you have to do things. Okay, so let's come to the simplistic part of the reactive thing first, right? Understanding how you're logging, first of all, the incidents and every information around it. Typical work which the police used to do on the physical ground will also be done now on the cyber ground as well. Understanding, doing the forensic side of the story, where or the entry points, what happened, then how do you cover it up and find that particular individual or breach and take action on it. That's the reactive part. Now, the good part is, with the reactive part, with technologies such as predictive intelligence, such as machine learning, you start understanding how things happen. Because the more these things happen, exactly like how it was in the real world, right? It happens even in the cyber world. You start understanding, you start learning, and then the systems start suggesting with an X number of confidence that this was seen previously. This is what happened as a result of that. This is how you can stop it, basically, which is where the part of proactive and reactive starts mingling together. And then finally taking it to the proactive element, which is where Sir was also talking about the VAPT side of it, right? The WAP and others. You need to know where your breaches can come from, what your vulnerabilities are, what can happen as a result of that. So that's where the vulnerability assessment part comes into play. Predictive intelligence again comes in, starts understanding what kind of vulnerabilities are there, bring them all on a common platform, because it's not just about infrastructure vulnerabilities. It's about the way you code your applications, which is the application vulnerabilities. It's the way applications can be exploited in real time. So that also comes into play. So different kinds of scanning technologies, bringing them all into a common picture. Okay, so right from security event and incident management to different kinds of assessment technologies, okay, to all of the other elements around cybersecurity, threat intelligence, one of the most important part, right? And then contextualizing it to the organization, again, be it private, be it public, so that you know that what can happen as a result of that, which is what leads to a very, very asked for phenomenon these days called risks. What are the risks that organizations face? Okay, and what can happen as a result of that? Okay, so turning it all together, leveraging the platform, aggregating information, connecting it with predictive intelligence and machine learning, giving you information beforehand, before something happens. Okay, also giving you the contextualized part of it, saying if you don't do this, this can happen to the organization. Okay, this application can go down, or this thing can happen. This application is connected with such data, so on and so forth, right? So that you can immediately take an action with all sorts of information available in front of you. That's where
Right.
we are seeing a lot of improvement and a lot of demands coming from organizations, basically, especially government ones.
I'll go to Mr. Manoj Abraham. Mr. Abraham, what we also noticed during the pandemic that there were a lot of prioritization of different projects. And that's happened because there was some pressure from resources point of view, some pressure from the revenue that the state or the central government were able to generate. So a lot of prioritization happened, especially project which was related to more social oriented. They got more preference. In that light, I would like to understand what are going to be the key technology focus for you down the line in 6 months or maybe in a year time?
Basically, yeah, that is when we talk of technology infusion in policing and using technology for transformation, one problem has been the lack of funding from the government because we know that the funds have been used for the COVID-related social activities as such. So that is why we have been leveraging the public-private partnership model where everybody comes in and puts in his bit in leveraging that system. In case of policing, also there is a lot of now a lot of systems involved where we actually find the police. Police is basically a negative organization where a lot of fining is there, and in the COVID pandemic, it has increased to a great extent with the fines for implementing the COVID protocols, etc. So you can actually leverage that finding system into funding your project also. What we have done recently with traffic system, we know that the earlier traffic checking system was the policeman standing on the road and checking the helmets and finding the person physically. So that with the COVID times, it is highly impracticable to do that because then the health protocols, everything has gone. It's dangerous for the policeman. It's dangerous for the driver that is running. So what we implemented is an integrated traffic management system where everything is through the device. The device captures anybody going without the helmet, without the seat belt. You have the AI, you have the digital technology available where everything can be photographed. Every violation can be photographed. And you send the challan, whatever is there, to the house of the individual by the Vahan Sarthi application. You know who the registered owner is. And he can sit in his home through the digital medium. He can actually make the payments also. And the payments can actually be used to fund the thing. So the government doesn't have to do anything. It's basically some player coming and putting up the cameras and they share the fine. Suppose you have a 100 rupee fine, they'll be getting 80% of that and the government will be getting 20%. So it's a win-win situation. But what it has done, there is no government investment in that. And the police also, the task of ensuring that the traffic rules are followed is done. And then we have the system in place also. The technology infusion is there, but the government has not spent any money also. So that aspect is also coming.
Right. I'll come back to you again. Now I'll move to Gaurav, Mr. Gaurav. Mr. Gaurav, what Mr. Abraham was talking about, that having an innovative way of public financing, wherein the private players come in and you have an innovative way of actually implementing the project. I know the ServiceNow has worked across various organizations, both public sector as well as enterprise across the globe. Would you like to share based on your experience in terms of the technology focus shift that you are seeing and some of the innovative method of financing those projects that are happening across the world?
Interesting point. I'll start on lighter note. The systems, especially what Manoj sir mentioned, right, from a police fining perspective, work very well. In fact, I received a fine online. Okay, and the crime of mine being I had at a signal, I had breached the signal, and my tires were on the zebra crossing, which I didn't know was actually what do you call it, a penalized offense, basically. But yeah, it works. It works very well, and it helped me pay the fine online as well. So which was the fastest and the best way to go ahead and do things. But yeah, So coming back to these things, right? Now imagine add out here the amount of data which is being gathered as a part of this, right? And this becomes very imperative to go ahead and ensure the security of that information. Coming back to that point, so we are seeing a lot of focus coming in on these kind of things, like how long can the data be retained as a part of this? How much of data should be retained? When you are going ahead and ensuring that there is a payment system online, the security of that payment system, because you're storing a lot of PCI and PII information as a part of that as well, right? So we are seeing investments coming in out there. But more than that, we are also seeing a lot of investments coming in at the governance side of things. How are you ensuring that these protocols are in place in the very beginning itself, right? Governance makes a lot of proactive thing coming into play. And the good part is with a lot of supporting data because of digital transformation, the previously manual processes of governance and compliance can now be automated, which is where we are seeing a lot of uh, demands being coming in for what is now termed as continuous monitoring of governance and compliance as well, which is also leading to the coinage of a new term which people are asking for when you're connecting things together, called resilience. How are we making sure that the operations are resilient, or in other words, risk averse, right? How do you ensure the operations are resilient, they continue despite things such as pandemics popping up? Because what is now assumed is these things are going to happen, these disruptions will happen regardless of that being a pandemic or a natural disaster or whatever it is, right? How do you ensure the operations stay resilient? So that's the other way, and the other side where we're seeing a lot of demands and a lot of investments being made by organizations. Now, honestly, to get financing for these things, that's not my forte out here to talk about how do we get financing for these things. But then when you start showcasing the continuous risk that you're facing and how your businesses can be impacted upstream, which is to your superiors and all the way up there, you will start getting eyeballs on your what do you call it, the projects which you bring forward. Like if we don't go ahead and invest in this particular project, the risks are that this part of the business can be impacted, let's say. So we are seeing those kind of things also, where we call what, especially ServiceNow, we support in what is known as a business value impact assessment. Okay,
Right.
we conduct those kind of things also in ServiceNow and help organizations show that this can be the impact, this is the ROI that you will get, and this is the kind of investment that can go into these kind of projects, basically, which are there. So
Right.
we help
Right.
do that as well.
Right. We are completely exhausted our time. Mr. Manoj Abraham, Mr. Gaurav Mahendru, thank you so much for your time. And both of you spoke quite well on digital platform for government and how it can deliver a standardized experience with security, agility, and scalability. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, speakers, for your valuable time and imparting some really thought provoking learnings.